What?
He shoots someone in like the first 30 minutes.
It's just like one country. The whole planet is just a country, pretty much.
The thing I'm most excited about with Andor is
May the Force.
The Force will be with you. Always.
welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sydney Laurel. How are you doing?
I'm good.
And today, we're also joined by Sammy Boy, co-host of the Battlefield Show, as well as runner of two channels, one on Star Wars and one on first-person shooters. We've had him on the podcast before, but this is the first time we're having him on the podcast with video. So really excited for this one.
Yeah, it should be good. I'm very keen. There's a couple of good topics that I'm very, very keen to get stuck into.
Oh, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Hunters. Sammy has first-hand experience with it, is going to educate us on the world of Star Wars Hunters. And we're going to be talking after the break about Andor, our thoughts, expectations, theories, and some of the details that we are getting slowly but surely through the drip feed of some of their marketing. So let's jump right in. What's going on with Star Wars Hunters? Obviously, we talked about it in a previous podcast episode about it being delayed, but what's the state of the game right now? Because you're actively playing it somewhat, right?
Yeah, I've to be honest, since the announcement of the delay, I have definitely dropped off a little bit with the playtime. But I still sort of pay attention to it. It's in a weird spot. I don't know really how to explain it. It's been delayed and it's technically not out yet, but it is in soft launch.
Yeah,
and they're doing like
Right.
battle passes and stuff. It's really, I don't know. It's a weirdly run soft launch. I know that soft launches for mobile games are pretty. They're a common thing, but I've never really seen one happen where they're kind of acting like the game is fully out when it isn't. So it's just kind of weird.
So there's a battle pass in it? I didn't even realize that.
There has now been multiple battle passes.
And the game's what?
It's so weird. Like I think they've now gone on. I think there was one that was really short. The first one, I think it was only like a week-long battle pass, and it was just like a quick intro. Then they, I think, did the first legitimate one, and now I think they've just moved on to the second one. So I guess technically 3 battle passes. It's weird. I'm not sure what to make of it, to be honest.
I am so confused as, like, how... Obviously, this seems like a pretty standard thing for mobile games, but I don't understand in terms of, like, we all have experience with... Like I'm gonna use the word real games, even though that's more like it's obviously in jest. There are tons of great mobile games that are really, really good, but in terms of like, we come from that background of like, I'll say it this way, more traditional gaming, to where you don't have like, you have betas, but you don't really have a soft launch where it slowly like goes out into different countries and regions, and you also have a battle pass that I just now became aware of today.
It's look, without the battle passes, I feel like it's a regular soft launch and it's kind of gone as they normally do. Which even then, I do think soft launches are still a bit weird, especially with how long this one has been. It's been since November. It's only been a year.
Good.
So it's like...
I didn't even realize that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it came out the same week as Battlefield. Like, I remember that week I was like... It just dropped out of nowhere, and I was obviously busy with Battlefield, so I was like, oh no, there's 2 games now that I've got to cover. And so, yeah, it's been, what are we, August? It's been like 9 months roughly, nearly 10 months.
That's insane.
That it's been in soft launch, and I think a soft launch for, say... I don't know, 3 to 6 months is relatively normal, but one that's this long that also has like the battle passes and they're doing events and all that kind of thing. Like it's very odd. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest. And it's almost a bit frustrating because I've been talking to Mark about this. Like it feels ready to go. It feels in a spot where they could launch it today and it would launch well. It's not buggy. It's pretty well balanced and everything. I don't know why they're not launching it. That's the part that's really confusing. It might be to do with the Switch. I'm not sure. Maybe they haven't got that side of it right. But Yeah, I play on the like on PC on an emulator, so it's obviously hard to tell. But I have played on my phone, and it plays smoothly and everything. So I don't know. That's the weirdest launch of a game I think I've ever seen, to be honest.
That was my follow-up question. Like, do you think that the delay was necessary?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering too.
I think, I think if they've delayed it, it must be.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I don't feel like it is. I feel like if it launched today, it would be very successful. It's like I said, there's no real bugs. I haven't, even like when it launched, like in November, there wasn't really that much that they needed to fix. It's pretty well balanced. It's set up for monetization and everything. It seems to me ready to go.
Yeah.
And I even know that they've got like the next hunters is already being worked on and stuff. It's not like they need to delay it to get ready for the future content. Like, it's ready. Everything's ready. I don't really get it.
What?
Is it just the one map?
Yeah. Nah, so that's the other thing. They've done updates where they've added content. They've added new modes and maps and stuff. It's so weird. They added, so when it launched, there was only 3 maps, and that was a bit like, okay, I can understand why it's not out yet, because there's a little bit of content, and they also since then have added 2 hunters, I think.
Yeah.
No, potentially more than that, I'm pretty sure. But at the start, I was like, okay, I can understand why this isn't out, just because of the lack of content. The game was in a good spot, like from a bug standpoint, but it was just lacking. But they've then added probably another 3 to 5. I can't really remember. It's been a while. So there's probably like 8 maps in the game. It's in a launchable state. It's very odd.
What?
Yeah.
Good gravy.
Yep.
It's
very weird.
It's so crazy too, because like we just got done recording an episode of the Battlefield show, and we're talking about like the lack of content. And here's a game that's not even out yet, and it's getting more maps than Battlefield has in its entire life cycle so far.
Yeah.
More of their like specialists or heroes, whatever you want to call them. It's so funny, but it also makes sense. They kind of like locked themselves into it because they had that soft launch, and it was going to tie into an early 2022 release, right? Like that was the plan.
Yeah, yeah.
And then their release got delayed, and they're still doing the soft launch apparently. Like, I wonder if they're going to have enough content. Maybe that's the reason they're delaying it. Like, they're working on the content for the soft launch that will ultimately make up the full release, and then they're also working on the post-launch content. But I also think that you make a really good point with the Switch aspect of things, because I think historically console makers are usually what delays most updates, especially like
true.
That was the thing with like Battlefront. A lot of their updates, the thing that was the biggest thing was approvals on both the EA side of things, the DICE side of things, and also they couldn't just push out an update because it had to go through each of the platform holders, whether that be PlayStation or Xbox. And then it also had to be kind of quality assured tested that it would actually work once it's on their side of things.
Goodness.
Yeah. I think for me that's the thing that it seems like it must be to do with the Switch, because that's the thing we haven't seen yet. We've seen it on.
That's what I'm most excited about, honestly.
Yeah, that's the annoying part. Is that's what I want. I
want to play it on the TV.
Like that's really frustrating. Is because I can play it, but I kind of don't really care until I can play it on the Switch. Like that's where I think I'm gonna really fall in love with it, because it's a very fun game. But because I'm on the PC, it's an emulator. It's a bit like it almost feels non-official, I guess you would say. It doesn't feel like I'm playing the actual
You're hacking
game,
the Matrix.
So I think for me it's the Switch is what I'm keen forward to, and I do think that's, if there's going to be something that's going to cause delays, it's probably to do with that. I would imagine.
Now, I'm not like in the whole like I don't know the behind the scenes of what goes on with most of these guys, but couldn't they just launch it and then add it to the Switch later?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that a thing?
So. Unless they had like a contract with Nintendo, maybe.
Yeah. It must be something like that.
It's gotta
because
be.
that's what I kind of feel like. I feel like the logical thing would be, okay, it's not ready on the Switch. Let's delay the Switch launch.
Yeah.
Right.
Still launch it on iPhone and Android. So whether there's some sort of contract or
Yeah.
I don't know, something just legal to do with that. I'm not really sure.
Going on,
but-
and they can't talk about it because then it's like pointing fingers at who's done it,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Well, we'd have it out right now if
Yeah.
it wasn't for Nintendo.
Right.
Yeah.
Screw those guys, even though they gave us a bunch of money to market it on their platform. What's so funny to me is the social media for Hunters is like they're acting like it's out now, and then I look at all the comments and they're like, "How do I play this?" And then they have to respond like, "Oh, you can't yet unless you're in."
It's so awkward.
it's so
like,
painful.
Yeah, you see them tweeting about like the abilities for the hunters and like showing what they do and stuff.
Yeah,
As if they're like new and they've just been added, and it's like anyone who's played it has like mastered these characters because we've been playing them for like nearly a year now, and then the ones who haven't mastered them can't play the game. So who are you tweeting to? Like who is that for? It's so confusing.
yeah.
It's so.
It's so weird, but from like the research I've been like, look, obviously the length of the soft launch is the weirdest part, but how they're running the soft launch is just perfectly normal for mobile, apparently.
Yeah, that's the thing that I guess, like you said, I'm kind of the same. I'm more of a, I guess, air quotes,
You're a
traditional
real gamer.
Yeah. So I haven't really seen that many like, soft launches and all that kind of thing. I know that they're a thing, but they're not something that I've actually like experienced before.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of this is normal. I don't know if a battle pass during a soft launch is normal. I would assume it's not, because it's just like, why are you releasing skins that not everyone can buy? That, to me, that's just limiting your revenue. That's you're not going to make as much money. Like, it's just weird because those skins will go away. So you're making content that not everyone.
That is so
will get.
weird.
It's just weird. Like, why would you make a skin that you're going to sell to like 5% of the potential player base, and then it will be gone eventually, and no one can get it? And why have you made that skin? You know what I mean? It's just kind of, I don't know. It's very odd. The whole thing just doesn't make sense to me, to be honest.
How is it in terms of getting into lobbies and stuff? Like, is it pretty?
It's like instant.
That
Yep.
is
It's
so
really
crazy.
quick. They've
And
had
that's
a million
being
downloads
emulated
on,
on a
both Android.
PC in Australia.
Yeah, yeah. It's so fast. There's I think the most in a lobby so far is like 8, so 4v4.
Yeah.
But they are adding like a big mode in the future. But
Oh wow.
you search for a game and it's like immediate essentially. And yeah, they've had 1 million downloads on the Google Play Store and the Apple Store each, so 2 million players
In a soft launch.
which is like, yeah, it's so weird.
So you mentioned
It's
it
just like,
earlier.
yeah.
It seems pretty well balanced. We were watching some gameplay of it. It looked pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in a good, like, from a gameplay perspective, that's kind of what I mean when I say it feels ready to launch.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I'm like, there's this really bad bug and you can't do this or that, or like one hunter is way better than the rest. There really feels like there's nothing wrong with the game. That's why that's the part that's confusing. If it was a bit buggy, I'd be like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
But it feels like it's in its launch state. That's the most confusing part. Which, like I said, that is what makes me lean towards it must be something to do with like the Switch or
Yeah.
some sort of, I don't know, some sort of like licensing issue or I don't know. There must be something to it. I'm not sure.
It's odd that they like advertise the what is it, the delay. It's weird that they advertise the delay as them wanting to make the best game that they can.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, wait, but now it sounds like it's a great game already. So what's really going on here?
Yeah.
This is weird.
It's very odd also because like they announced the delay and then in that announcement they announced the next update as well. It's like,
What?
we're delaying it. Oh, by the way, there's an update this week.
We will still continue to bring content to the existing
Yeah.
player base in the soft launch, and
Because when they delay it, that to me, with any other game, it feels like, okay, like
Yeah.
we're going to take a bit of a break and like get it right.
Right.
But they're not doing. They are still updating. They're still putting out
That
the
is
events
so
and battle passes.
weird.
So
What?
it's not like it's in a dire situation. That's the part that's really confusing. It's not like, say, when Battlefield was delayed and we played the beta and it was like, okay, I can see why that needs a delay. This is like, yeah, there is, to me anyway. Obviously, like I said, internally there must be something. I trust them that there must be some reason to delay it. But externally, it's like, I don't know. I just don't get it at all.
Super surprising. Like it's probably the weirdest launch of a Star Wars game that we've ever had.
Yeah,
and that's saying something.
For me, definitely. Yeah,
because we have
we've had some rough ones.
Yes, we have. We've got this soft launch. First off, we get it announced. It was included in the original agreement for the exclusivity license with EA. Like that was one of the things that this game will be made for mobile. It was like one of the exclusions, as well as like Traveler's Tales. You have that, and then you have the announcement of what the game is actually going to be. You have some teases. It's revealed into it's revealed in a Nintendo Direct. They say, hey, it's going to be a soft launch. It's going to open up in these little these areas of the world. That seems pretty normal. Okay, and then it is supposed to come out in was it like spring or summer 2022 with the soft launch in winter of 21, and then you have like the game just keeps on getting expanded to these different areas, and you're like, okay, it's just going to keep on expanding until it gets to like the Western countries, right? No, it just keeps on expanding into these smaller areas. You have people emulating it. You have people getting it through other means, like setting the different regions on their phones, app stores, and all that fun stuff. You have all these different steps that they take, and then it keeps on launching. You have the content. You have all of these things lined up. It's continued to be updated. You have a delay, which is weird. And in that delay announcement, like you said, you have the announcement for the next update in the season. Like, what?
Yeah. There's so many things to it that are just so odd. It's not like it's just one thing. It's not like the delay is the weird thing. Like, the whole, from start to finish, is just odd. Everything about it is so weird. Especially because it actually has been delayed twice now. This is the second delay, technically. The first delay was, I think it was meant to come, in early this year. So I remember when the soft launch started, I remember talking to Mark about it, and we were like, oh, so it's probably, if it's soft launching now, it's probably in like, I don't know, maybe March or April it'll launch, something like that. We kind of thought also like May 4th, maybe it'll be around that time. And then it was delayed, and we thought it would be the end of this year. So I was kind of thinking like around this time of year, maybe like October or something like that. And then it's been delayed again. So it's like... It's just so odd. And like you said earlier, though, that's a good point, that maybe the soft launch is so weird because they have had to delay it, that it has dragged it out longer than they intended. Maybe it was only meant to be like 3 to 6 months.
Right.
But because of the delays, they can't like remove the soft launch. They can't be like, oh, sorry, we're deleting it for like 6 months. So,
thanks for joining. See you later.
Yeah. It was like a year-long open beta, and then it's just gone. So yeah, maybe that's why it's so weird. I'm not sure. It's just it's been a funny thing to watch, I tell you what.
Yeah, especially like from our perspectives, because we're not in that. I jumped in and played some of their other games that they've made, and they have like a racing game. They have a couple strategy games. They have it's a wide variety of these different games that they have. This is like very unique for them. It's also. It is a sub-company of a sub-company that is also expanding into launching their own games. Like it's so crazy. And I think it's an Austin, Texas-based company as well. So it's not like...
Yeah, I think so.
It's US-based, and they're launching in all these very, very smaller countries. Like it's the ones that you wouldn't think to launch in, they're launching in first.
Yeah, it's like they wanted to... It feels a bit like they really aren't sure how it's going to go, and they want to see like, okay, let's launch it in a small country to see if the servers can handle it and stuff. But then they've also released it in enough places, and like I'm pretty sure it's out. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's now out in India, which has 1 billion people. So
yeah, and mobile games are huge there.
Yeah, so it's like, if I'm not sure if it's out in India, why is it not out in America and places like that? That's like, so it's like I said, every single aspect. None of it makes sense to me. It's all just all over the place.
My question is, are we all going to be bored of it? Like, by the time it actually launches? Like, is everyone else going to be like, okay, we kind of just, we get the game.
I thought that was out already.
And then the Americans are going to be like, great, now we're all we're noobs here. And what?
Yeah.
There's going to be such
That's
a different...
the thing for me. That's why I've actually stopped playing, is because I don't want to get bored of it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, if it's still, like, potentially 6 months away, I don't want to play it because I was playing it every day. I probably have nearly played more hours of Hunters than Battlefield, and I've played so much Battlefield.
Wow.
And so I kind of thought, like, I maybe should stop playing so I don't get bored of it because then, like, when it actually drops and I'm making content on it, I'm not even going to.
You're the old man in the
Right.
corner, like, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Let me dust off my device.
It's going to be weird to see if that is the case because, if it comes, let's just say it drops last in America and everyone else is kind of bored of it. Yeah, that's going to be an odd dynamic there. So it's going to be interesting to see the actual. I'm very interested to see how the actual launch goes. Like if it's going to go smoothly or because it's been dragged out, if people are already kind of over it. It's not as, maybe it doesn't do as well as it could have. Or maybe it does better. I don't really know. But it's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah. I cannot even begin to fathom the thinking on all of the decisions that they have been making.
Yeah.
I bet many of them are scratching their heads too. Like,
Wait a second.
why are we? What?
Well, you pair it with like the scale of mobile games. Like mobile games in terms of sales and numbers and the amount of revenue they bring in dwarf that of like traditional gaming. So it's like when you say real gaming, you have to think of like real gaming in terms of you sit down in front of a TV and you play it for hours upon a time. Like, but if you look in terms of if you're calculating realness of a game by amounts of revenue earned, like. Mobile games are the real games. Like that's why there are so many people investing in a mobile, and that's one of the big things with like the Xbox Activision stuff is like they got King, which they own Candy Crush.
Oh gosh.
And like 70 other different like smaller game studios just from that one acquisition. That's why it's so huge. Like that was their mobile play.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bigger. That's the thing. Is it to me? It feels niche. Gaming on a phone feels like the smaller thing when it's actually it's got way more players than who has a PlayStation or an Xbox or a PC. So
I mean, everyone has a phone.
Dynamic there.
Like that's your audience.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Except for all of us.
Yeah. I guess we're the niche ones.
Yeah, we're oh my gosh, we're the niche.
Yeah.
Oh. That moment when you realize you are the niche.
Yeah.
Oh no. But now we're going to take a little bit of a break and we're going to hop back and we're going to talk about our Andor theories, thoughts, and expectations for the show.
Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
Now let's talk about Andor, the new series coming soon. I mean, it was originally supposed to be coming out in like the next few days, I believe.
Yeah.
We missed it last time we recorded. We said it was going to come out in August. They've delayed it until later September. And it's so fascinating because one, they're shooting on location, which I'm super pumped about. Like they don't use the volume at all. Which hallelujah.
Which I think you can tell the quality in the trailer.
Yes.
Oh
like it looks like a movie. I think that I really like the volume. I think it has worked with Mando and stuff, but like there's something.
I think that's the only one it's worked with
about,
though.
Yeah, true. Good point. But I think there's just something special about when it is actually filmed on location. It's just like you can tell, even though
Shots
the volume
are
looks
planned.
very good. Yeah, exactly. So I'm very keen for that aspect of it.
I even think that the actors themselves get more immersed too.
Yeah. Like I'd say the volume is the step between green screen on one side of the extreme, on set as the other side, and in the middle you have this weird mix of both of them. Technically, it's incredible and I love it. It's so cool pairing television technology, filmmaking, and video games. Like that's awesome. Like you're speaking my language. But in terms of like actual you're actually using it, you see the finished product, it doesn't lead for a lot of flexibility because you have to prepare everything for the shot much further in advance. You do the shot, and then I've heard a couple interviews where they're like, yeah, it puts a lot of pressure on you as a director to be able to use this because you're like, oh, these are the sets that they created. These are the situations. This is how you have to use it. It is real time, but it's also like it has some weird limitations that they're still learning. It feels like the same thing with the prequels and digital filmmaking and the green screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it probably is very similar in that way that like this is like the prequels kind of set the pathway for like CGI. Mm-hmm. That was like the first that had ever been done to that extent. Yeah. And I guess this is the same sort of thing where, like we're probably seeing the lower end of it because when you look at the prequels, they like at the time it was awesome, but like now you look at it and you're like, oh, whoa, that looks not very good. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, like this does just continue to evolve, and you know, hopefully we can get it to the point where it looks indistinguishable from real life and stuff. Like that'd be awesome. But yeah, you can definitely tell the quality difference between the volume and I think real life. Like I don't think you can ever fully emulate that.
Yeah, and I think too they're learning that one, you can't shoot an entire show on it. Just like you learned with green screen, you can do a lot with green screen, but there's some stuff that you need to do on set, on location, and in certain places. And I think they relied way too heavily on it in Book of Boba Fett and especially in Obi-Wan, where you had basically it felt like a stage play, because that's kind of how they used it. And I think we're going to slowly start seeing them hopefully pare it back, and maybe instead of shooting 85% of the show on the volume, we see them doing like 40%. And then they also have a mix of green screen. They also have a mix of on-set stuff. Like they use the tool for the situation instead of like, we've got a Swiss Army knife where we can do everything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. It should be like a complementary thing to the filmmaking, not the like film the whole show in it, because that definitely doesn't work, I don't think.
Kind of jumping back into Andor, we have some new details in terms of how the show's actually running. So it's going to be 12 episodes. It starts September 21st with 3 episodes all in one go. Like it's going to be a late night for us.
Yeah.
And then it will follow a year in Cassian Andor's life. This is via SFX magazine, and it's, quote, mostly set on a single planet before the already commissioned second season covers the 4 years leading into Rogue One, which this is the first time I've been hearing about the second season.
Yeah, it's been, I think they like rumored it. It wasn't fully, like, I guess, official until pretty recently, I think.
Oh.
There was, you know how there's kind of always leaks that you can kind of tell they're legit. Like that when something's leaked so much, you can kind of go, okay, that's probably real.
Something's there.
It was kind of at that point, yeah. So there was also rumors that it was going to be like 5 seasons. So it's obviously hard to tell how true that is. But yeah, I think 2 seasons sounds good to me. The way that it's all laid out, I'm actually really interested in the fact that like season 2 is like, I think there's like 2 episodes per year or something like that, and it's like. It's going to be, that's almost going to be like a movie, like each of those is going to be a movie in a way. So I'm really interested to see that.
That would be
really fascinating.
This is my time frame, because we get the original trilogy stuff, we get some of the prequel stuff, we get this kind of, the galaxy is trying to figure out where it is. This is pre-Death Star. This is, you're in the darkness, really. Like that's where you are. You're in the midst of, everything is as bad as it can be before you get the ultimate weapon of the Empire. And then you get to see like the decisions that ultimately affect or create what we see in the original trilogy are made in this era. And I think it's so cool to see that.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have a guess about what planet they are mostly sticking to? Because we saw several in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. If they've said it's mostly on one planet, but then I feel like we saw heaps of planets, didn't we? It wasn't just one planet.
Yeah.
It's a very, very different style of planet in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Usually you have
that's
like
the
one
thing
biome.
with the planets in Star Wars that like, when you think about it, it is an entire planet. So maybe it could all just be the same planet and it looks different in certain places. That's the thing that with Star Wars, it's like, I think we all expect the entire planet like identical. It's so weird.
is
like
a jungle
Tatooine
planet.
is just all sand. Yeah,
Only
it's a jungle
Earth
planet.
has
There's
different
there
biomes.
can't, yeah, there can't be a city on a jungle planet. What is this? This is fake.
Yeah, that is like even I'd say like the closest to our planet would be like Alderaan. Alderaan seems pretty similar, but even that's like
Alderaan and Naboo, I think, are like the two only like real like planets that look a bit different, where they've got
but
like
even that's like Naboo's Spain, but an entire planet of Spain.
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, it's not like when you think that's a perfect example. It's just like one country. The whole planet is just a country.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, if you really think about it, that kind of is probably what would sort of happen, at least in mentality. If you're going through like the galaxy, you know, like if everyone's thinking big, 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 then even the planet.
Yeah, because I guess
seem
almost
small.
like each planet is like if you go to a new
The
planet,
galaxy
that's like going
is a
to every
planet,
country, I guess.
and you have all the biomes on their own little spheres.
Yeah.
The thing I'm most excited about with Endor is we get freaking Coruscant, buddy.
Yes.
Bring it back.
Yes.
We recorded
Very
a
keen for that.
reaction that I still haven't put up on the YouTube channel. We recorded a reaction to it, and like I need to go back and check it because my reaction is like, oh my gosh! And Sidious like looks over at me and is like, what? Just like, who is this dude?
Yeah, it was a bit eccentric.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't had Coruscant in so long. Like it.
Yeah.
I need more of it in my life.
Yeah.
But sadly,
It looks good too.
Sadly, it's like pretty Coruscant. I'll take any Coruscant. Disney, stop it! Stop canceling any Coruscant plans. I'll take anything you give me. Obviously, I prefer like super grungy, but I'll take pretty Coruscant as well.
Yeah.
You gotta take what you can get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm desperate here. Yeah, so that's really cool. Can we just talk about like the visual style of this? Like, it is so gritty. Like it totally takes what was established in Rogue One and carries it over to the rest of it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, it looks like Rogue One. That's the best way to describe it. It looks like a movie. The others do look like shows. And it does look like a movie. The trailers, obviously, it's hard to tell and like trailers are always going to look good, but it just has that, like you said, that gritty. Yeah, true. That's very true. But yeah, it has that gritty vibe to it, and it just, the other thing I like about it is I think that with no expectation, this isn't Obi-Wan. This isn't someone that we've known for 40 years. I think
so
the fact
true.
that there's no expectation is going to make it. They can just tell a good story. They don't have to.
Yeah.
There's no like fan service.
Yes.
needed.
That's what
Obviously,
I've
they
been
can throw in-
saying. It's like we need to get away
they
from
can
these
throw in
characters.
some cameos and stuff, but like it doesn't. I'm not watching this thinking, oh, I can't wait for Obi-Wan to fight Darth Vader.
Yeah.
That's why I'm watching the show. I just want a good story. I don't really actually care what happens, as long as it's like I think this will be like the objectively most well written and scripted of the lot, because the rest of them do have like a lot of them do have like the that fan service that they almost have to do. Like Obi-Wan, it has to do that. You can't just make it like the perfect show and then not show all that kind of thing. So that's the thing that I'm keen for, is that it's just, I'm going in with no expectations. I think it looks really good, so I'm excited. I'm expecting it to be good, but I'm not expecting. I don't need this and this to happen in the story. I actually don't care what happens at all.
Apparently, it's going to be much more of like the real big bad is going to be the Empire itself in terms of the organization and the like the actual systems and the bureaucracy that's been being put up. And we're also seeing like Mon Mothma have this really what was it? There's like an interview or something where it's like she's sticking her head up out of like the barricades and is trying to fight with their system, play their game, but also in the background have this foundation of the Republic and the rebellion and having all these pieces moving, while she's like, any single mistake she makes could cost everyone their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it feels like the stakes are very high in it. Like, even though it's weird because we know what happens, like it's not.
Yeah.
We know where the result is going to be, but it does feel like there's a lot at stake, and you can kind of feel that in the trailers that like this is people's lives are on the line. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that. It just feels like it's going to be a bit more gritty and a bit more, less focused on like individual. Obviously, it's about Cassian, but it doesn't feel like it's a Cassian show. It feels like it's a story.
Yeah.
That's actually just the entire story. We don't have any, like you said, there's no single big bad. It's just like the good guys versus the bad guys, and that's something I'm really excited for because we don't really get that in Star Wars that often. It's usually like, even Mando, it's not about the Jedi and the Sith, but it's still about Mando. It's still about him and Grogu. It's like a character-driven show.
Yeah.
Even though this is about Cassian, I don't feel like it's going to be just about Cassian, and I'm very keen for that.
Yeah.
I think it's going to do it in a good way, too, because I think where the second season of Mando, because I love the first season, I love that it tries to tell a unique story. You have these new characters doing new things in a new situation. And then you get the second season, and you have like basically they're like, let's put up a bunch of names of Clone Wars characters, shake them up, and then pick them out and see who gets in. Obviously Ahsoka, but I feel like that, and especially Book of Boba Fett. I think one of the big gripes that we had for sure, obviously the writing and just kind of how it flowed. But one of the big things is like they titled it the Book of Boba Fett, and it ended up being the Mando Show 2.5. And it's the same with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was the Obi-Wan Show, and then it became the Reva Show. And I think this one is in such a good situation to where it is in kind of its own bubble. It's riding off of the fandom of Rogue One, and it's also like you get this really interesting look into things of, hey, we have an endpoint, which is Rogue One. We have a character that we've established, and this is the character that ultimately becomes the broken down character. Like, this is Cassian Andor has been fighting for the rebellion. What does he say? Like, fighting this fight since I was 6 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
This is that character. He is worn, broken. He has such like would have, depending on how things go, a very dark look on life because we don't see that character growth in Rogue One. Like, he's in the midst of Cassian right now. Like, this is war.
Yeah. And that's a good point that I didn't think of, that this won't have a happy ending. This is going to end in, like we say at the start of Rogue One, it's like desperate times.
Yeah. He shoots someone in like the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. The first thing that we see of Cassian, you almost think like, is he good? Like, you don't actually know if he's a good character. And so we are actually going to see him become that. That's something I didn't even think of, because you kind of just, with Star Wars, you always expect like a bit of a happy ending. This I don't think this can have a happy ending, really.
That's exciting.
Or I guess like Rogue One didn't have a happy ending at the end of the day, so maybe that's contradictory. But yeah.
And I think too, it's benefiting from that. Like, Disney wanted them to have, or they weren't sure if Disney would let them kill off all of the main characters. And they took it to Lucasfilm heads, and they're like, no, it makes sense that they die. Go ahead. And I think like, that's something that I don't think it's changed so drastically from that moment in how Star Wars, especially like reports of Obi-Wan being, quote, too dark. And like this one has to do that. Otherwise it like takes away from Rogue One. It scares me to have so much excitement for a Star Wars show, but I can't help it with all of the things that have been. I mean, we are a month away from the release, and we still know so little about the actual show.
Yeah,
it's good. I like it.
All we've seen is that it looks good.
Yeah.
Like, we don't actually know like where the story's going. Like I feel like and maybe because it was a shorter series, but with Obi-Wan, I feel like we kind of knew what was going to happen roughly. And yeah, like we know the end result of this, but we don't know. We still don't really know how does Cassian end up the way that he does, and there's so much story to be told. Like you said, it's a 5-year thing, so there's going to be like a lot that happens.
Yeah, and the first season's going to be. I mean, each episode's going to be a month, I would assume a month, because they have like 12 episodes 1 year, and then season 2 is going to be like condensing 4 years into one. Like, they have a lot to set up for the character, and ultimately that second season and I think it's going to be. I'm just fascinated from like a filmmaking perspective and a storytelling perspective. How do they kind of weave the story where you have these month-long jumps in between things? Like I'm really excited to see what that's like.
And if it'll work.
Yeah, and if it works.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of what I was getting at earlier. This feels like this one will be. It just seems a bit more like, I guess, stable the way that they're going to go about it. It's more of just a passion project than like this is the Obi-Wan show. You know,
Yeah.
like, this has no attachments to it, and it feels like they can just really dive deep into it and just tell a good story because there's no expectation. There's no like, like Obi-Wan has to fight Vader. Nothing has to happen in this show. We just are along for the ride and just see what happens. So
yeah, and
it feels like they can just tell a really good story, and that's the extent of it at the end of the day.
that's such a good point because I mean I loved Cassian Andor and his portrayal as a character, but I don't think like he doesn't really have the fandom yet of like, oh my gosh, it's Darth Vader, or like, oh my gosh, it's Cassian Andor. I think they went into it like, we're gonna tell a good story. It's gonna be around Cassian. Like, really, Cassian? Like, you have all of these. Like, you could do something else, right? And it's like, no, we're gonna do this. Also, they're giving it the time necessary. Like, two or 3 years that this has been in production.
Yeah, well, this was the second show announced, wasn't it?
I think
This is
so.
behind Mando, I'm pretty sure. So this was I remember actually hearing about this years ago.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk about like K2SO is going to be in it and all that kind of thing. And that was like 3 years ago. So they've had the time to. That's what I'm excited for. Is it just feels like it's not rushed and not just for the sake of it. It feels like they've just gone. This is just a good story, and we're going to make it not to, sell Disney Plus subscriptions. We just want to tell a good story because that's At the end of the day, with stuff like the Obi-Wan show, I enjoyed it, but it is just fan service, and it's not. I don't think there's anything wrong with fan service if it's done well, but when there's no fan service, I think that always makes for a better story because you're not trying to fit things in just for the sake of it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Agreed.
So have you watched Light and Magic on Disney Plus?
I still haven't. No, after you mentioned that the other week, I still haven't.
Dude, it has like blown my mind. But this show seems like very similar to early Star Wars. The studios were very hesitant around George Lucas with the sequels, or with the sequels to the original trilogy or the original movie. I have so much respect for George Lucas. I've watched the entirety of Light and Magic. I've watched 2 other documentaries on the making of Star Wars, behind the scenes and all that stuff. Like, I am a George Lucas fanboy right now. Like the amount of things that he has helped create. We're going to do a whole episode on this, but and just the innovations that he's pushed the filmmaking industry in unwillingly. But I think one of the biggest things is for The Empire Strikes Back, he took 3 years to work on that script. Like he took a lot of time, or 2 years to write the script. And then the production of the movie was like 1.5 to 2 years, something like that. Like he took the time to really tell the story, working with Lawrence Kasdan and just like really nailing down what it is and taking the time when everyone's like, yo, you need to do something next. And he's like, no, I'm making another Star Wars. And like, another Star Wars? That's stupid. Sequels are the worst.
It is one of the few, when you think about it, it's one of the few sequels that is better. Like, I personally think Empire is better than A New Hope.
From a filmmaking perspective,
says
100%.
A lot because, which says a lot because A New Hope is so good.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's very rare. That doesn't usually like that.
Especially in the 70s and the 80s. Like,
exactly. Yeah. So he definitely had some balls to stick to that, and with especially a lot of people that he knew, a lot of like really good directors in that, and if they were telling him like probably don't do that, and he still did it.
Also, he self-funded that movie for the majority of it.
What?
Wow, what?
Yeah, and he only when they went under budget and they the bank that they had, like this big movie picture bank, the biggest there, they changed financial officers. He was like, no, we're going to pull the loan. Only then did he go to he only went to like 20th Century Fox and was like, yo, I'm going to give some points in terms of how much money we're going to make. And also I think he distributed all of the earnings from that movie to every single employee in Lucasfilm and in Industrial Light and Magic. Like, yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
What a man.
What a legend.
Yeah. So I have even more respect for the original trilogy and just George Lucas's vision, and even more respect for the prequels. But we'll get into that into like another episode of the podcast, because I'm just gonna nerd out and like, so I could talk forever about this. But my ultimate point is, like, it seems like they're giving it the time necessary to really do the thing and tell the story, and to do more of like the HBO style thing where we're not going to focus on quantity. We're going to focus on quality of the shows that we produce for our originals.
That's the vibe I get from it too. It just feels like they're not, like I said, they're not doing this for any reason other than it. They just must have, been pitched this idea, and they think, wow, that's a really good story. We want to tell that. Not we're trying to sell subscriptions. That's the part that excites me the most.
Yeah, because if they wanted to do that, they'd do something like Darth Maul or something.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick a big name and then make it about someone else.
We want to launch a TV show on this unknown character that we just created. Let's start a Darth Maul show.
Yeah.
Make it all about the new character. Yeah. But I'm so pumped for this. I mean, they had me at Coruscant.
Yeah. The weird thing with this show is that when they had that big, like, the Disney Plus day or whatever, and there was like 10 shows announced.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, this was the one that I wasn't not keen for it, but I was just like, yeah, it'll be pretty cool,
Yeah.
I guess. I think this will probably end up judging, obviously it's hard to tell because we haven't seen it, but it looks like it will end up the best of all the shows so far. It looks like they're just taking the time with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really shot up on my list of the ones that I'm keen for because of that, because it just looks quality. The rest of them, not to say that the others aren't quality, but this one just looks that level above, I think.
Yeah. I would go as far as that, but we know my perspective on this. But call me Cassian Standor, because I'm all for this. Yep. And with that terrible joke, I think we've had a great episode here. I'm so pumped, and I'm so glad that you're able to join us for this episode and join us for episode 69. Have all the memes around that, and just dive into it. And I think we're working on behind the scenes stuff with Star Wars Uplink, and just kind of changing things up with the introduction of the video aspect, and also behind the scenes topics that we're covering, broadening it to the TV shows and the movies. And I think it's such a fun opportunity to have these discussions, as well as kind of looking at it from the broader universe perspective of like Andor pairing with the original trilogy, Rogue One, as well as what does it look like for the video games too with this era. Could we see Cal Kestis, because that timeline would line up? Like, I think it's so interesting to see what happens with the broader universe of Star Wars, and I think that's really fun.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, we're spoiled.
Yeah.
But thank you again, Sammy. Links to all of Sammy's stuff will be in the description of this episode to find out all the ways that you can listen to his beautiful Australian accent. And
Thanks
also,
for having me, guys. It's been a blast.
Star Wars. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
As soon as I was like, we need to have Sammy on the podcast to talk about Star Wars Hunters, and also Andor.
Yeah, the perfect combo.
Oh, yeah. But with that, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. We greatly appreciate all of your support. If you enjoyed the show, definitely do consider leaving us a review. It helps us out a ton, especially as we're switching up the content of things. It helps push us even more on all of the platforms that you can find the podcast on. So again, thank you all so much for listening. Check out the YouTube channel for all of the video content that we have there, clips from the podcast, as well as the different segments. You can also see our faces, and you can do that if you want to. You can see our faces.
Maybe, if you'd like.
If you'd like to, as well as all of the other content as well. As always, thanks for listening, and may the Force be with you.